الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in His path until the last day. In the previous weeks, we were looking at some of the verses from the 70th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'arij, in which Allah Azza wa Jal, He identifies what we have as a tendency as humans, an intrinsic part to our human nature. And this is something that's important for us to understand principally in the Quran, as it gives to us opportunity to deepen in our understanding of theological principles, ethics, values, character. It gives to us historical context. It gives to us mechanisms, ritual, and practice that are divinely ordained to worship Allah as best as we can. There's a text that also is telling us about ourselves. And when you reflect upon the Quran, reflection in and of itself cannot be done just purely in a vacuum. The idea is to not just contemplate, but to contemplate upon in a specific frame. And part of that contemplation has to also include, how do these verses apply back to me? What is the relevancy of it in terms of who I am and where I am in my life? And what is it speaking to me that I need to hear, whether I willfully or regretfully am taking it? And these verses are of the utmost of importance, because in Surah Al-Ma'arij, Allah Azza wa Jal is speaking to us about things that many of us struggle with quite often, and if not us directly, people that we know in the prism of just sheer anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, not knowing what direction to go in. That when He says, "Innal insan," that indeed all of humanity, each individual, you and I, regardless of our background, khulika, was created halu'a, in this state of frenzy, this state of anxiety. The next verses, they give us an insight into what this state of Hana actually is. That when they are touched with anything that is not good, shar, إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا, they get into this state of overwhelmedness. And even when good befalls them, the next verse says that when they are touched with khayr, manu'a, they become stingy. The notion being that when I have an anxiety in what tomorrow might bring to me, and the wealth is in my hand. I'm so worried that it doesn't bring me contentment, but just more anxiety, that what if I need it for a week from now or a month from now? But the prescriptions, which are things that we started to look at some weeks ago, are rooted in how we can take on some of these inner anxieties from Quranic understanding. إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ, the next verse says, those who make their salah consistently, continuously. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ, they are doing it with that consistency. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ, those who know that within their wealth there is a right to others. لِسَائِلِ وَمَحْرُومٌ, to the one who asks for it and the one who is just in need. What we want to look at now is the third characteristic of these people of Salah that the Quran is talking about, that they don't have the same hecticness that comes when life hits them in the face hard. To give us an understanding that it's not just about the people who pray, but within the course of that prayer there are other variables that we want to seek to implement and inculcate in the course of our lives, so that when good befalls us we can actually find meaning in it. And when difficulty comes our way, it doesn't create a paralysis, but we still have the capacity to move forward. That I'm not a person who is beyond embracing achievement as well as failure, because the notion isn't to find success in being in a place that I'm never brought down, but when I fail, I still keep moving forward. I still keep trying. I still keep continuing. And so the third description and quality of these people, the Musallin, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, الَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ, that they are the ones who have a firm belief in the Day of Judgment. May Allah grant us ease on that day and make us people of Jannah. The belief in the Yawm al-Din is something that is not just meant to be casual, but applying it back to the verses that come and the initial premise in this set of this chapter. How can my belief in a day of judgment, in an afterlife, be something that brings to me ease when I'm in a state of anxiety? How does it become something, consequently, that if I have a firm conviction in this thing, إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا, that when they are touched by something that is hard, difficult, wrong, they become in a state of anxiety. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا, when they are put in a place that goodness comes to them, they are still stuck. That belief in the Day of Judgment helps to add a prism of perspective, to understand what is the reality of this world proportionally in reality to the world that will come beyond this one. The idea that when you look at any page of the Quran, there's going to be some mention of a reality that is a world beyond this one. Something that is going to give to us insight on what it is that we need to be doing in a frame of mind that informs where it will be when we move from this place. But in any aspect, when I am thinking about what the day ahead of me is going to bring, when I reflect backwards to think about what was the day I just lived going to entail when I stand on that day, belief is meant to be a source of strength, not a source of weakness. It's meant to give us a courage, to allow for us to have an audacity when we walk through this world with an understanding rooted in this conviction that I'm able to do so much because of this belief in a day of judgment. It gives me a sense of accountability. It gives me an understanding that the choices that I choose are not things that are just in a vacuum. That you can look at a Meccan society, that it is drilled into their head from day one of revelation, coming over 23 years now, that there is something after this. There is something after this. There is something after this. They're able to practice female infanticide. They're able to live in a stratified society filled with the same phobias we have today, rooted in racism, classism, sexism. Authority unchecked, that I have wealth and I have privilege and I come from noble lineage and I am from this background. So it means nothing that I have to worry about what I do to you, because what recourse is there back to me? The belief in the day of judgment is to get into those people's heads that what you have been given is something that you will be taken into account for. Regardless of who it is that you might exert dominion over in this world, or you can get away with treating in a certain way, you can do whatever you want. You're going to have to explain why you did it that way. And there's a benefit in it because it helps keep my actions in check. On the other end of it, the one who is recipient of your actions, your choices, your decisions, they also have solace in the fact that there is a day that is going to come where everything is made balanced. The weak, the oppressed, those who deal with inequity, those who are in a place where they are left to wonder, even on a day like this. You sit in the day of Jumu'ah, mashallah, as the rain is falling in severe outpours. And there are people who on this day, from the beginning of the rain, reached out to us right from the beginning saying, is everybody okay? What can I do to help? Does anybody need anything? Are they stuck at home? Are they in a train? Is their bus stuck? You see how many less people are sitting in our Jama'ah right now because people literally couldn't make it here. Trains are flooded. Roads are shut down. The FDR is closed. And there's people who have uniqueness in their hearts. That when they went through it or they saw it was happening, their first inclination was, how is everybody else doing? What can I do to be there for somebody? Why is there a need to have a deep understanding that there is a day of accountability? Because there's people who are sleeping through this. And their sleep is disrupted because the trains that they would normally sleep in, they're not running right now. There's asylum seekers who were shipped here in buses. Imagine what it would be like to sit in a bus. You don't even know where you're being sent, and they are living in tents in the streets. You can walk just around Washington Square, where this area of New York City is considered to be pretty affluent if you go to the West Village, but if you walk eastward, you still have low-income housing, projects. You have people who also are still dealing with the realities of a post-pandemic crisis. What do you think happened to all of their clothes? The way your clothes got wet today? What are they changing into? You know why you need to believe in a day of judgment? Because it'll help you think a little bit different about what is my responsibility to that person. To my sister, to my brother who is sitting next to me, who I've prayed next to maybe for weeks now, months now, years now. I still don't know their name. How does a day of judgment inform for me the utilization of my time? How does a day of judgment help me to understand the spiritual gifts that God has endowed me with and what it is that I'm going to do with them? How does a day of judgment help me to recognize the reality of what is finite in relation to what is something that is eternal? وَالَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. These are the people who they don't have anxiety. Their world does not get thrown upside down when something seeks to push them down, or even the mere materialistic gains of the world that they thought if they struggled for to acquire would give them contentment, but just gives them more strength because it creates more worry. These people, they don't have any of that. They're in a place where whether things are good or things are not good, they're still good, man. The day of judgment is something that is described to us in a very direct way. Why is that important? Because sometimes when we sit and we talk about certain things, people come all the time and they said, I didn't know Islam said that. I didn't know Islam said that. Nobody told me that that's what Islam says. Sometimes it's not that someone has to tell you. Sometimes you have to get to the place where you take the steps to learn it for yourself. And this is a critical variable to Islamic theology. Individually, you cannot believe something just because somebody else believes it. Belief lies in your heart. Do you believe that you are going to stand one day in front of Allah? The descriptions are given in detail so that there's no room for anybody to say, I didn't know. It's right there. You just got to take 10 minutes to read about it, learn it, and then reflect and actualize decisions based off of a prism of it. There's 2 trumpet sounds that will be blown. The angel was created and appointed. The whole task it was given was to just blow the trumpet. The first blow is going to be equated with what is called the sa'ah, the hour, the moment. It's when everything just stops. If you wanted to think about that in prisms that are empirical, which you don't have to be able to validate your religion, but what contemporary understanding would bring to us to bring even more concrete is this is what science would call a big crunch. That everything that exists in the cosmos is just going to suddenly deflate and go into itself. That's what's going to happen when this first trumpet sound is blown. The Prophet ﷺ, when he describes this instance and people ask him, why is he in sometimes the state of worry that he's in? He says, how can I not be? When the angel is already standing with the trumpet brought to his face, ready to go at any moment as soon as Allah tells him. Man mata ala shay bu'ithat alayh, that whosoever dies upon a thing is resurrected upon a thing. That last moment in this world is going to be something that is of the utmost importance. So the minutes that you were given were not given to you so that you could potentially die in a moment of gossip. They weren't given to you so that you can die in a moment when you're being racist. They weren't given to you so that you could ridicule, mock, objectify women in your life. You weren't in a place where you want to leave in a state where you haven't sought forgiveness from someone you have wronged. Your prophet lives in a state where he is so consciously aware of this angel that another hadith says that the angel just stands looking in the direction of Allah's throne, worried that perhaps he might blink his eyes in the moment that the command is given to him. But the angel is ready to go. You got to be just as ready. Knowing that the time is not there to just waste. It doesn't mean you can't have happiness, you cannot have fulfillment, but you do it with an intentionality that's rooted in a recognition that there's still consequence and accountability. The second blow is then what is called the ba'ath, the resurrection. And the parable is given to us in the Quran again and again and again. That Allah is telling you to look at things that are elemental, just like you make wudu with water, just like you tell the time of prayer from the cyclical pattern of the sun. Allah is telling you in the Quran, look at the way all of these things die and they're brought back to life. The flowers, the trees, the leaves, everything. They are coming and going and coming and going and coming and going. It's going to be the same thing for you and I. And it defines itself quite deeply. The reality of time in that moment is going to be distinct from time in this one, because now when people stand on that day, they say the standing is going to be the equivalent of 500 years. But the reality of those 500 years are distinct from these days and years, because people will be asked, how much time do you think you spent in this world? They'll say, maybe I spent a day or half a day. And you're standing now in a state of frenzy. The people who do good in this world, the day is very different for them. It's described very vividly to give you an insight as to how you stem accountability from a recognition that you will be taken into account for what you do. That's why your Islam is not my mother said this or my father said this. That's why it's not my friends were saying this and I just joined in and didn't do anything. That's why it's not I didn't do what I had the ability to do because nobody else was doing it. You're not an account just for what you do or what you didn't do, but what you have the capacity to do and you still didn't get it done. It's going to be a hot day, that day of judgment. May Allah grant us all shade on that day. There's categories of individuals that you should go look up. The 7 who are granted shade on the day of judgment. And you want to then read those qualities and think about those qualities, but take the effort to take a step that literally each one of you has a computer in your pocket. You just Google it and say, who are the ones that are granted shade on the day? You read through the hadith and then you make dua that, Ya Allah, make me from each one of these categories. Because the alternative is described that people will be in such a state of frenzy, not wearing any clothes. Ankle deep, knee deep, some up to their chins in their own perspiration. Someone will come with the idea of perhaps we can go and ask the prophets of God to be able to help intercede on our behalf. And this is a key part of intercession, shifa'ah. Where there are moments now where you want to learn about these things, to think about what it is that is done here that can allow for me to have intercession, that all of these things are just left behind and I'm not in this state of frenzy. To not think about it in the prism of just how do I avoid what is difficult, but I want to be the person that's in the shade. I want to be that person who has that success. The same way you want that job title, you want that paycheck, you want that degree, you want that ring on your finger, you want those kids, you want that house, you want to identify success, not in terms of just what is worldly, but have an aspiration that says that I want to be there in that place, and I want to be the reason that somebody else is also interceded for. Just like I want to be the person on a day when the rain is falling like crazy, I wake up and I ask Allah for a heart that says, let me think about all those who have to live through this on the streets. When they go to Adam, peace be upon him, Nuh, peace be upon him, so many more. Intercession is not something that they were given, but uniquely the Prophet ﷺ is given it. He is said to be prostrating in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the hadith says that Allah tells him to raise his head up and to go and intercede on behalf of the people. If you read the prophetic biography, if you read the hadith and you realize not just how much it is important that you have a love for the messenger of God, but how undeniable it is that the prophet has a love for his people and all of humanity. Every prophet is given the benefit and blessing of having a dua that is answered, guaranteed. And our prophet says that he saves his dua for all of us on that day. He does it not because of who you are, because of who he is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why you should want to be like him. And you get to a place where there is now actual judgment that is exercised. And thinking about it in prisms that are not limited to just worldly acquisitions or to have elementary understandings of religion that are too simplistic or reductive. Because we have companions that come to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, what do you say of a woman who she prayed a lot, gave a lot in charity? Essentially, they're saying, did all of these acts, but her neighbors were harmed by her tongue. La khayra fiha, hiya min ahl an-nar. There is nothing good within her. She is from the people of fire. What do you say of the person, the woman, who she was just essentially in the hadith, they're saying, doing the bare minimum. Prayed, didn't give so much in charity, but nobody was hurt by her. Hiya min ahl al-jannah. She is from the people of paradise. May Allah make us all from the people of paradise. When the judgment comes, the questions that you are asked first is about your salah. If everything is good within it, then what comes after is good. If it is not good, everything is judged in accordance. It is really hard to make an argument about why somebody thinks salah would not be something that they should be doing. But Allah is so merciful that when the angels come to assess our individual prayers and find deficiency and gaps within the fara'id, the obligatory acts of it, He sends them back to say, go and see if they did anything extra. Is there anything that was on top of it? The sunnahs, the nafils, whatever else that is there. He's looking for a reason to have you succeed, not looking for a reason to push you down. You're going to be asked about your time and how you spent it. You're going to be asked about the resources you've been given and how you utilize them. You're going to be asked about each and every single thing and why it is a long day, because everybody's taking into account for everything. The people who have less in this world, their accounting goes quicker because there's not so much that they're taking into account for. But the more stuff you have and the more things you have and the more responsibility that you have, whether you ask for it or not, it's something that's there. I chose to have a son and a daughter. I chose to get married. I have to deal with what comes after that. It doesn't mean that I get to say I was tired this day, or I was in a bad mood this day, or this person looked strange at me this day, or this law enforcement officer kept me off of a plane on this day, or I had some people who were being annoying on this day, and I went and just took it out on my babies. If I chose to be a father, I'm going to be asked about why I wasn't a good father. If you're in a place where you have chosen certain things for yourself, you chose to pursue degrees, you chose to take on jobs, you chose to be somebody who made wealth, you chose to be somebody who was in community, you're going to be asked about things. And the way that the accounting is done is not just you get to say whatever you want to off of the top of your head to be able to make arguments and justifications. But the limbs, they're going to speak. Sometimes you want to just sit and look at your hands and say, what is my hand going to say for me or against me? When you look at the face of somebody that you spend a lot of time with, what will the ears of that person say that they heard me speak into them? And you want to understand that the thing with something like this, you don't have to believe it for it to be true. But it's better to take it into consideration now so that it informs what it is that is being done here, so that things get done in this place, which is the only place that things can get done. When you stand on the day of judgment, that's not where you can ask Allah, can I go apologize to that person that I was gossiping about? Can I go say sorry to that person that I mistreated? Can I go at this moment to reconcile what it was that I had a ton of time in that world to do, but I just didn't get it done? Can I go pray 2 more rak'ahs? Can I go attend the halaqah? Can I go and volunteer? Can I go and check in on my brothers and sisters? Can I go and be a reason people have hope? This is the only place you could do it. And when the accounting is done, every single limb is going to speak. The books that the deeds are written in, they are going to speak. The angels that are sitting on each of our shoulders, writing down every single thing. The Quran is said to be a proof for us or against us. May Allah make it something that is in our benefit. Allah Himself, He is witness over what it is that we do. And even if none of these things were there, Allah's witnessing is more than sufficient than you can imagine. The very earth that you tread on is going to say, this is what you did upon it. This is a time to riddle your books. Let these angels witness. Allow for the earth to echo in multiples all of the good things that are coming from you. But you take it, you sit, and then you think about it. What will this hand say that I did with it? What will these feet say that I walked towards? What will this tongue say that I did? Did I speak words of healing, or did I push people down? Was I silent when I should have been the one shouting? Or was I shouting when I should have been silent? Why didn't I wake up on that day and the first thing that I did was to think about where I could be helpful to somebody else who is stuck in this inclement weather? But all of it is going to be part of this accounting. The Mizan is said to be a time when people are not thinking of anyone other than themselves, that the scales are brought forth and everything is weighed out. There is nothing other than complete justice when you are talking about Allah. That means all of these people who are in a place where they are perpetrated against, they will get their due right. The people that have rights and responsibilities that are not honored throughout all of humanity and mankind. And all we're told to do is try our best by recognizing that, hey, that day is going to come. Just be ready for it. It's not about a pursuit of perfection, because the books will also have record of saying where we acknowledge that I didn't do right in the ways that I was supposed to. How many pages in the book that will be presented to Allah? How many times will your tongue testify on your behalf that you were making istighfar, that you were engaged in tawbah, not as a way that would delegitimize your sense of self-confidence, but as a spiritual vehicle that sees that my nobility and dignity is rooted in not pursuing a futile perfection, but rooted in the idea that I can do wrong to people. I do make mistakes. When was the last time you said sorry to somebody? Especially somebody that you could get away with never apologizing to at all. When the nafs gets in the way and it becomes a matter of arrogance just going back and forth as egos are combating, it doesn't mean that on that day the choices are still not going to be taken into account. When hisab is done by Allah Azza wa Jal, that's it. The day of judgment, informing these people of salah as a mechanism to allow for anxiety to be pushed away. You know how many times you see in the hadith the Prophet ﷺ bringing ease to his companions when they are in a state of just inward chaos? Let these people have this world, man. Live for the next one. You know how many times it is when there are tears being shed because they see in the poverty that the last messenger lives, marks and scars on his back from sleeping on mats that bear no comfort. Thinking about those who are the leaders of other empires living in all kinds of luxury. He understands the proportionality of this world in relation to the next. As your brother who loves you, I would say to you in a few different frames, don't treat people bad and live up to your responsibilities. Not the ones that are just convenient, but even when they're not convenient, you have to get done what is expected of you, because whether you take it or not, it is something that you will be accountable for in the world beyond this one. May Allah grant us all ease on that day and make us people of Jannah without any judgment. And as you enter into that phase of conviction, then take it to another level, that it becomes empowering. That I'm okay being different. I'm okay being outside of what is the norm of how people see things. Because what this world builds itself upon when it's driven by just a consumer mentality, it wants you to think that this is it. This is all that is there. And it's in contradiction to what our religion teaches us. all of this is going to feel like a drop in the bucket when you stand in front of Allah. So let it be something that brings healing and strength. Not resentment, not bitterness. You don't want toxicity against those who have hurt you, that you long to see something that is bringing you more pain than you might realize. But you put it in Allah's hands, that He's seeing everything that's taking place. And you allow for it to be a mechanism that renders consciousness and wakefulness. It says, what will I put into this world today that when I stand in front of my God, I know that He will be pleased with it? What am I going to do for somebody else before this day is done, who I know is in a state of chaos, in a state of anxiety? There was a student that went to school here some years ago when the weather was bad like this, and everybody else is just putting raincoats and umbrellas and all kinds of stuff. I think it was actually blizzards, not rain. And she came to me and she said, last night I started knocking on every door in my dorm, asking if people had an extra pair of winter socks. And I want to go to more people because I was amazed how many people were willing to give the socks. And I went and gave them to people who were sleeping in the street in just terrible weather so that they could have warmth. But what she was really giving them was also a sense that they're noticed, that they're not forgotten. You want to be the person when somebody asks you for a pair of socks for somebody who's sleeping in the cold? What I'm saying is you want to be the person who also is thinking about it enough and then acting on the thought to go and ask people, hey, do you have some extra food? Do you have a blanket? And if it feels awkward, then shut shaitan down and don't let your nafs be tyrannical. And you don't have to live in a dorm. You can live in an apartment building. You can live in a neighborhood on a street. There's no place in New York City where you are not surrounded by people in every 10-block radius. But you have to want it. You have to want to see the world in this way. And one of the variables, but not the only variable that helps us to get there, is this belief in a day of judgment. And I want you to think for a second. This young woman who went and asked for these socks, how much peace do you think she had inside of herself that allowed for her to even think of a thought like that in the first place? What do you think it did for her inside every time somebody's face smiled that she gave this basic apparel to? The benefit comes back to me. The benefit comes back to you when we're acting on conviction, not just mindlessly. So don't just believe in dunya and that money is going to be the key to everything. Don't believe just in the false reality of physical beauty and vanity, that all it's doing is making you hate who you will be 20, 30 years from now when this body won't look the same way in that way. But believe in these things which are actual realities and let them inform your decisions, your choices, your deeds, so that you're not just a Muslim who is good at Islam because you know how to perfect postures and prayer and mechanics, but you're a good Muslim because you're a good person. And your philosophy on life is rooted in a set of convictions and beliefs that are concrete, regardless of what the world is throwing at you. It's for our benefit that Allah has given to us an insight to embrace that is the reality of a belief in a day of judgment. May Allah make us from amongst those who are granted ease on that day and given entrance into the highest levels of His paradise without any hisab. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسول. Make sure today you check in on somebody, anybody. You're in a space where literally on most Fridays we have to tell people 10 times, please move up, please move up, please move up. Your thoughts have to go to, where is the person that usually is praying next to me that makes this room so cluttered? What is the responsibility I have for them? And then you take it to another space and say, what about those that I share space with, that I share neighborhoods with, that I share this city with? And allowing for yourself to take an understanding here through what the world gives to us of insight, what that means in terms of the world that we will all experience that is coming after this one. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, the Quran says. This is fact, that what is coming, it is better than what is here. So don't treat this place as the goal. Treat it as the means to what the actual goal is. Let it permeate your decisions. Let it permeate your choices. If you find somebody who's in need of something and you don't know what to do, let us know. We'll try our best to help and make connections. And as we continue to get back to where we were pre the pandemic, we are going to reach out to all of you to ask of you in advance, what are your skills? What are the things you can offer? What can you be doing for people? So that we can build what we have the ability to build, so that when days are dark, we still are a source of light for people. We just get done what we can while we have the means to do so. I don't believe Allah gave me a platform so that it could be self-serving. I don't believe Allah gave you everything that He's given to you. Whether you recognize all that He has given to you or not, He has still given you things. I don't believe He's given you the things that He has given you only for you to serve yourself as well. You let this idea of a day of judgment permeate and think about what it means to you and how you actualize it in terms of belief and conviction. Inshallah ta'ala, that belief will be a means for us to have success both in this world and in the next. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from affliction, anxiety, and anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope. Hearts that are drawn towards things of real goodness and beauty. Hearts that find themselves deep in your remembrance. For indeed in your remembrance do hearts find rest. We ask Allah that these rains that are showering upon us, that you make them rains of mercy and not rains of tribulation. For any who have felt any difficulty as a result of this weather, Ya Rabb, We ask that you bring them ease and you make each one of us a means through which somebody's day is less difficult because of our affection, care, and our thoughtfulness towards them on this Mubarak day of Jumu'ah. Let this day not end without us being a means of benefit for someone else and true benefit for ourselves. Help us to be those who become deeply rooted in the convictions, the beliefs that this religion affords to us for our benefits. Make us from amongst those who have real yaqeen and the reality that is your existence and the existence of the day that we will stand in front of you, Ya Rahman. Make it a day that is filled with ease, a day that we can stand in front of you saying that we fulfilled our purpose. Forgive us when we forget. Forgive us when we choose selfishness over selflessness. Forgive us when we make excuses that render us a big pile of nothing to justify why we didn't do what we have the ability to do. And reward and increase all those who are amongst us, who set for us examples of what it means to be not a Muslim in name, but a Muslim in reality. Thank you for the gift of our Prophet ﷺ, who showed us what it meant to really live in this world as a true worshiper of you. Protect those, Ya Allah, who have to live through this. And help us to always remember that just because you have given us something doesn't mean that we deserve it. And when we can see them as gifts, things that we are grateful for, make it a means through which we no longer become tied and shackled to this dunya, but with real love, with real mercy, real compassion, are willing to share with everyone who is in need of it all that it is that we have been given, and share even ourselves for their benefit. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقم الصلاة.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're inspired by the work that we're doing at the IC and want to help keep it going, subscribe to our podcasts, follow us on social media, donate to help support us at ICNYU.org, and most importantly, keep us in your continued du'as. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.